Are you ready for today's workplace? It's faster, more competitive. On the job, employers use dozens of applications you've never heard of and have higher expectations than ever before. But that's business. As a blind job seeker, you won't get that many opportunities. So when the opportunity does strike, the job, the work, the real opportunity of employment, you better be ready. And you can do it if you put in the work to stay ready. The Workplace Readiness Accelerator program is designed to do this across 8 weeks. It's 25 hours per week, but on the other side, you will know. You'll know you've built the skills. You understand what employers expect, and you'll know how to accomplish it when you get there. You're blind, which means we've got to be twice as great to be considered half as good. So stay ready, be ready with the Workplace Readiness Accelerator program. To learn more, click on vocational rehabilitation at accessabilityofficer.com. Access Ability Officer. Ability is our middle name.
Hey there, and welcome to episode 154 of the Eyes Free Sports podcast. My name is Greg Lindberg. On this episode, we are chatting with a gentleman who was previously on episode 116 of the podcast. So feel free to find that episode and listen to our initial conversation. And so this gentleman has been very involved in adaptive sports for several decades now, and has recently become president of the U.S. Blind Tennis Association. So he has some updates on the current state of blind tennis here in the U.S. And he's also working on a very cool project to develop the world's first ever accessible football. We're not talking blind football. Blind soccer's been around for a long time. But this would be American football and the ability for blind and visually impaired people to actually play American football. So I think you'll really enjoy hearing about everything on that front. So let's go ahead now and hit the court and get swinging toward episode 154 of the Eyes Free Sports podcast. Okay, so I would like to welcome back to the Eyes Free Sports podcast, Murray Elbourn. Murray was originally on episode 116 of the podcast, so feel free to dive back into the archives to kind of hear our initial conversation. And I did want to mention that, Murray, you were recently elected earlier this year in 2025 as president of the U.S. Blind Tennis Association. So congrats on that, first and foremost.
Well, thanks very much for having me back, Greg. Last time was fantastic, so really happy to be able to talk about some of the new things that are happening. And yeah, it's great to be able to be involved in such a growth sport like blind tennis. I sat on the board, as we talked about last time, for the last 2 years, and then was elected to the presidency this year. And since that time, our board and I have really, had some great opportunities. We went to the US Open this year in Flushing in Queens, New York. Unfortunately, our activation was rained out, but we made some really good connections with the folks at Court 16 who originally started blind tennis in New York and did a session with Andre Agassi, which was really exciting. And so we're hoping to grow with them and partner with them on expansion. They're just gone into Massachusetts and Pennsylvania in Philadelphia. So great organizations to partner with. And USTA have really stepped up in the last 6 months to partner with us on a lot of really cool initiatives.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's really exciting to hear about the growth. And I'm definitely curious, too, if anyone out there is listening and is interested in playing blind tennis, getting some kind of activation or, a workshop in their area. Any advice on who they should reach out to or where they can go?
Yeah, absolutely. The best place to start is going to our website, which is usblindtennis.org. And then also you can contact me directly via text or giving me a call on 509-601-8447. Or you can also email us at vicepresident@usblindtennis.org. So 3 ways to be able to get involved, and we're really working hard, especially in California. I can tell you that we're running a tournament in Los Angeles in April, on April 25th, which is a Saturday. And there's a great group out there already playing with Wayfinder. So excited to be able to incorporate Wayfinder into blind low vision tennis. And their recreation coordinator has been really great in Los Angeles, as has Southern California USTA section in getting this tournament up and running. So, yeah, definitely, if you're keen to play, the LA tournament will be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. That's amazing. And just obviously a great, big market to launch in and then get that going there. And then you mentioned New York as well with the US Open and a lot of good things going on, it sounds like.
Yeah, absolutely. We also just got approved by USTA to be able to provide 36 blind low vision tennis balls to 10 blind schools around the country. And so in the next week, my board and I will be contacting those blind schools and getting them to fill in a form so we can send them the kit with their blind low vision tennis balls and start talks about maybe doing an inter-schools blind low vision tennis event, which is really exciting.
Oh, wow, very cool. Yeah, and as we know, getting youth involved and teaching them, just raising, making them aware of the sport, number one, but teaching them about it and getting them involved is so important to grow it.
Yeah, I mean, we saw each other at the national convention this year, and I know that I'm sitting also on the board now of Sport and Recreation Division of the National Federation of the Blind, and so it's great to be able to do that, and then also working very closely with the CEO of ACB as well, and so both national organisations have shown a great interest in supporting blind low vision tennis. And so I've been very lucky in that instance to be able to just get to meet more people. And when we're at the conventions this year, we signed up over 400 people who were interested in getting more information. So they're on our emailing list now as well. So I encourage people to just get on that list so we can send you regular updates.
Excellent. Yeah. And I'll definitely include the contact info you mentioned as well in the show notes so folks can easily access that.
Yeah, great.
Cool. All right. So let's move on to football, American football here. So I recently saw a video you posted on social media about developing an accessible, NFL American football and was just super intrigued. And I was like, you know what? I got to reach out to Murray. This is the first I've heard of such a thing. So tell me more.
Well, I guess the opportunity was one that I always thought about. In Australia, and for those of you who might not know, I'm originally from Sydney in Australia and moved back to the United States in 2023. And my wife is American. And so we lived here from 2001 to 2010 and then moved back to Australia for 13 years, where I was the CEO of Disability Sports Australia and Blind Sports in Sydney in New South Wales. And so when we moved back in 2023, I was looking for opportunities, and obviously tennis was one that I took advantage of straight away. But in the back of my mind, I also always thought, why aren't we playing a version of blind low vision NFL football? And obviously, there's some famous stories about the long snapper from USC who was totally blind who played. And so there's various different aspects to American football that has had blindness and low vision incorporated in it. And I thought the time was really right to be able to look at an option where we could start this process happening. But I think to be able to start a process with somebody like the NFL, you really need to be able to provide the best equipment and equipment that is going to be tested and utilized so that they can pick it up and run with it and market it with, myself as the founder. So I partnered with, or I had an initial discussion with University of Washington in Seattle, and they've just been fantastic partners. Honestly, couldn't do enough to support the project. Was very excited. I attended when I did that video that you saw, Greg. I was actually in the campus for an open engineering student process where there was a vendor student process where they picked the projects. And in December, early December, I'll do my first introduction to students who took on this project. So it's really exciting. The University of Washington Athletics Department has also signed on for this. So we'll be able to test the prototype ball at the UW Huskies Center in Seattle. And so just really, great partnerships make this happen. It's very hard to do it by yourself. And so you need those strong partners. So once we get that ball kind of in play and prototyped, then, we can really start working with the NFL, I guess, in more collaboration. And the ball is just the first part, Greg. So this is probably a 3-year project with University of Washington. We also want to be able to, and the ball, by the way, is haptics based. So much like if you wear an Apple Watch and it buzzes, that's haptic system in that watch. And so I think the great thing about the football is there's no technology like this anywhere in the world in any adaptive sports ball for blindness and low vision. And so what we're trying to build here is, really strong innovation using technology to make it as an adaptive sport as possible. So my vision for the game is that players will wear a haptics belt around their waist, and the haptics belt will act as kind of like a beacon device connected to the ball. So when the quarterback would throw the ball to a wide receiver who might be low vision, maybe, a B3 with 2200 vision or something similar to that, they're going to get feedback in their belt to know that the ball's been thrown, which side of their body the belt of the ball is coming to. And then as the ball gets closer to them as a player in a wide receiver format or a running back format, then their belt is going to buzz quicker. And so the haptics system, I think, is going to be fantastic. And we're also looking at a court or a field component to that as well, so that players with blindness and low vision will know where they are on the field or the court at any given time in playing this version. So super exciting, very early stages, but I do think that NFL football that's so loved in America, really can be incorporated and done well for people with blindness and low vision.
Absolutely. Wow. I'm just so fascinated by kind of the ideas here and, like mentioning the belt. And as far as sound, any thoughts on incorporating sound into the process?
Yeah, it's a great question, actually. So with any adaptive ball that I've been associated with in my kind of 35 years of international sport and playing goalball at a high level internationally and then coaching, it strikes me that we still haven't kind of utilized technology to its full instance. The best version of this that I've seen has been around for a long time in kickballs, but it's quite soft. The noise and the beeping sound isn't always great, and it's not always sturdy. And so we'll look at that kickball technology. And in Australia, the Australian Football AFL League, the Australian Football League, created a blind low vision football that also had a beeping sound, and that's quite a bit louder. But maybe the charging component that's in with that maybe needs a bit of an overhaul. And so we're kind of taking some of the technology that is already existing in Australia with their beeping version of the Aussie Rules football, and we're repackaging that and reimagining it in the NFL ball. So not only will it have the haptics that connects to the belts and the court or the field, but it will also have that loud beeping constant noise to it as well. So you'll be able to use multiple, the hearing, the sensory, all your other senses to be able to play NFL blind football, which is really exciting, I think, and really groundbreaking across the world. It really has the opportunity to change how we see blind low vision sports.
No doubt, yeah. And just kind of on that note, I mean, you look at all the NFL games being played in South America, Brazil, obviously Europe, now many different cities across Europe. I think they're headed to Paris for the first time next year, I believe.
Yeah.
So just really kind of fascinating to see that, just the popularity of American football on the international stage as well.
Absolutely. And I think, that's also a great opportunity to be able to look at this as a world game. That's one thing that I loved about obviously playing goalball for so long and coaching goalball is the international component of that. I think tennis is headed the same way. I was recently back in Australia and spoke to my old boss, actually, who is the CEO of Tennis New South Wales in Sydney. And then I talked to the head of accessibility tennis or adaptive tennis in Tennis Australia about having our first Teams Cup event at the United Cup finals in Sydney. And so I've also connected to Lawn Tennis Association in England and obviously Tennis Australia. And so maybe setting up a Teams Americas versus Team Europe versus Team Australia's cup in blind low vision tennis at the United Cup Championships next year. It was or in 2027. Apologies, but everyone's got a big appetite for that, and so NFL, is going to expand. I think it's inevitable, as you said. So many games in Europe and South America, so many good crowds and enthusiasm for the product. So I think that's a great opportunity now to get in on that ground floor of adaptation as well and start working with the NFL.
Definitely, yeah. I'm just thinking a little more off the top of my head about like rules. I know you mentioned, like Jake Olson, obviously the long snapper for USC. That's pretty well known in the blind community. Any thoughts on like totally blind, say B1 athletes, B2, B3, kind of going through the different levels of vision and maybe specific positions that some might be best suited for?
Yeah, well, obviously, I think we want to keep the integrity of the game. That's really important. I was thinking, something like either 3 or 4 people in the offensive and defensive line positions, maybe 2 wide receivers and a running back with the quarterback, and then vice versa with the safeties and the cornerbacks for the defense. So I'm kind of envisaging maybe, a 7 to 8 person team on the field at any given time. I think we also have to think about that as well if we're trying to start up leagues and teams in different cities. You don't want to go, 30 person to a roster type of thing. It's impossible to get a team then. So we have to be realistic about what that is. As I talked to you before, I think, taking some process from what Move United have done with Wheelchair NFL, which just started in 2021, and learning from their models. Might also be great for the sport because they've kind of done it and engaged over a period of time. And so I'm hoping to have a conversation with them soon so that we can get their input and perspective on the challenges and what worked well and what maybe didn't. So we're not just kind of starting from scratch. And then, of course, obviously engaging the NFL, looking at community and flag football models where, we would take adaptations of rules and so forth, how long the court or if we're going to play indoors or outdoors type of thing. There's so many variables, I think, but it all definitely starts with the ball. The ball has to be the centerpiece of what the game is, because if it's not accessible, then it won't work.
Exactly, yeah. And I assume you're aware that ACB, the American Council of the Blind, started a partnership with the NFL earlier this year, mainly focused on like accessibility for some of their websites, apps, platforms. But I'm also curious how your project here might be able to fit into that relationship.
Yeah, I had a really great meeting with the CEO at ACB, and he was telling me about the partnership with the NFL and some of the great things that they're doing in broadcasts. And, I've obviously also worked pretty closely with One Court.
Sure.
And, I think trying to get One Court into NFL teams has been something that I've really supported. I run my own business with Ameribility, and we work in markets including Washington State, Oregon, and Nevada now with the agencies for the blind, doing training and other work. And so I think, the opportunity to work with the Seahawks and the Raiders as a starting point is really great. And and incorporating things like One Court, incorporating, organizations like ACB that are already doing things with the NFL is an absolute no-brainer. So I've been really, pleased with the collaboration and the want to be involved in these types of collaborations, which is great.
No doubt. Yep.
I mean, even IRA, I had a great conversation with their CEO, Troy at ACB, and then again at NFB. And, IRA is doing some amazing things in the sports space. They really want to be at the US Open next year and maybe do a joint activation with us at US Blind Tennis and One Court. And so, again, the ability for fans with blindness and low vision to be involved in these things and then play the game, I think is a great, crossover.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. And I should mention also I'm volunteering for an organization here in Florida that does live audio description, mainly for theater, plays and such, but we're getting into sports as well now. So I know we're looking to get into whether it's NFL or any of the main sports, just in terms of providing live audio description, in addition to a broadcast, which you're going to get some information on as a blind fan, but any way that we can connect more blind fans to sports and serve them in the most accessible, way. Obviously, that's the goal.
Yeah, absolutely. I was involved. Have you heard of sound tennis, Greg?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, so that started at Monash University in Melbourne, in Australia, and so I was consulting with Vision Australia on that project, and they did a great job initially, and now obviously one court, and they're modelling at the US Open and other big sporting events with the Soccer World Cup coming up as well that they're involved with. So, they're doing a lot of really positive things in that space, and I just think it's a no-brainer. And, in Florida as well, in Orlando at the National Tennis Center, they just had a tennis clinic there for coaches for blind low vision. And so we're very hopeful of getting a group running regularly in Orlando as well, which is exciting.
Absolutely. Yeah, I did get to try it for the first time as well, and it was just amazing. Yeah, it was a lot more fun than I thought it would be, having never played tennis. So really glad I got that chance.
And I think the other great thing about both of these sports is the orientation mobility perspective, with the haptics and the beeping ball. Hopefully, it will enable people who maybe have recently lost their vision, or even people who have been blind since birth, to really focus on practical ways to use their orientation mobility skills, which I believe is so important in any sporting environment. And obviously playing goalball where you're wearing a blindfold, throughout the game, it's really helped me a lot, just feel more confident, being legally blind myself, in just navigating the world, having played goalball for so many years and being able to visualize, count steps, know where things are, sense spatial awareness. All of those things, play such an important role in what we need to do from a sporting perspective.
Well said. Absolutely. Yeah. Just so many benefits, and, you're not just playing a sport, you're just learning and soaking up, I feel like, so much about your environment and spatial awareness, like you're saying.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think there's just so many really great benefits to sport and recreation, adaptive sport and recreation. And so, if I can help in any way, I definitely want to. And it's also been great to talk to other sports as well. Sitting on the NFB Sport and Recreation Board, there's a girl who's a competitive rock climber. We've had great conversations. Josh at ice hockey, who's been involved at both national conventions, ACB and NFB, has been great and really supportive. He came out to the US Open in New York with us and had a great conversation. And so, these sports that kind of sit in the peripheral where, there's not beat baseball as well, obviously, has been one for a long time, that isn't managed or doesn't want to be managed by the USABA. There's a great opportunity, I think, to collaborate with these sports coming together and supporting each other, because we're doing everything in isolation at the moment, which isn't always effective. So if we can help each other and build that collaboration, I think we can have some really strong outcomes.
Right. Yeah. There are a lot of silos out there. I feel like, a lot of people doing great things, but not necessarily working together, multiple organizations coming together. But it sounds like, with the NFL here and ACB and the work you're doing, especially on the football front and tennis front, that is starting to happen. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, it takes time, right? And I'm sure you know that better than anybody. It doesn't happen overnight. We'd love to be able to just say, "Hey, it's here, let's go." But right. It takes many things to happen to make something successful like that. So, but I hope to be at both national conventions this year with a booth. Stop by, have a chat. Talk to me about tennis. Talk to me about NFL. I can give you some updates. Hopefully by then we'll have gone past our capstone project. So I'm really hoping to have the prototype ball at both conventions this year for NFL, to talk through. So yeah, I'd love to be able to just meet people and hear your vision for what it is. You know, I was at the at Texas, and they had a blind high school American football coach, and talking to him about some of this stuff. And so there's people all over who are doing amazing things that I'd love to get involved in the project, and I'm excited about the opportunities.
Wow, very cool. And yeah, I do know ACB is going to be in St. Louis, just for those who don't know, next year in 2026, I believe the end of July. And then NFB will be in Austin, Texas, I think early July.
Yeah, I think it's the 3rd of July it starts. So excited, you know, it's always kind of strange that they put them on at the same time, but it's challenging for vendors sometimes to be everywhere, but it's very important to be at both. And I think, you know, we got really good responses at both last year in Dallas and in New Orleans, or this year in Dallas and New Orleans. And just for tennis, I think we signed up over 400 new players that want to play tennis around the country. So, you know, there is a great group of people who want to get out and get more active more often. And that's the message, right, is to be more active more often is going to help in all of your other parts of your life to be able to build that confidence and socialization and, just feeling part of a community, I think, has become more important, Greg. You'd probably have some feelings on the building of a community, but it's I noticed at the conventions this year, people really want to feel part of something, right, and want to be part of something. So I think it's good timing for these things to start to get up off the ground.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think the pandemic, unfortunately took a toll on a lot of folks mentally and separated us in a lot of ways. And I think at this point, people are really, really anxious to get back out and make those connections more than ever.
And I just want to say, obviously having been legally blind since birth, it's great to be able to see those communities grow. I have social media accounts, as you would have noticed, obviously from the post, but TikTok is one that's really growing. I think, I started posting on TikTok, and I think in the hashtag blind talk, there was maybe 20,000 people with blindness and low vision. And I think that's grown well over to 60, 70,000 people now across the world. And so you connect to your peers and you just see and hear some great stories about what content is happening. And, of course, everybody kind of knows the Molly Burks of the world, but there's so many more people now with blindness and low vision doing amazing things and having the courage to get out there and be seen. And that's really important now as well. Obviously, challenges over the last year of how mainstream America sees people with blindness and low vision has been a challenge. And we have to keep talking about these positive things so that people know, hey, just because you have a disability or you have blindness or low vision, you can still do anything you want. And it's really important to just keep on talking about that and keep on showing that to people. So, I always appreciate when you reach out and we can come on and talk about these things, because shedding a light on it is really important.
No doubt. That's the goal here, raise awareness and hopefully make an impact in some way.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think last time we might have talked a little bit about the Paralympics, like in terms of getting a new sport into the Paralympics, which I'm sure you're, pretty familiar with, I would think.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely curious about blind tennis and kind of the visions maybe you have and others have about getting that into the Paralympics.
Yeah, so definitely making some ground. I know that the International Blind Tennis Association and Samir, who is the president of that, has had a number of meetings with the head of IPSA, which is the International Blind Sports Federation. And we will be a part of the IPSA World Games, which is happening in 2027, I believe. And that will be a big step forward for us. We were part of the IPSA World Games in 2022 in Birmingham in England. And that was the first time that tennis was a part of those games. So
That's
I think
right.
Now we have a couple of cycles, and Paralympics does things about 6 years in advance. So this year in 2028 in LA, I know that rock climbing, competitive rock climbing for blindness and low vision, will be a part of that as a new sport. We're hoping that tennis might be an exhibition sport in Los Angeles. I actually just had a meeting yesterday with the NorCal and SoCal people and they're very supportive of it, and we're definitely trying to do it. And obviously, wheelchair tennis is part of the games, and so that's the next evolution. But it starts with making sure we have good rules, good connections, good site classification. So when blind low vision tennis started, they had a different site classification format than the IPSA site classification format. And so we have to work through those guidelines to be able to align, which we're working on doing, which is great. And then just the ability to be able to write the right plans and have it be a world game, and be in all regions for qualification purpose, and allow, each region to have an opportunity to be represented at the games is important. The advantage, I think, for blind tennis is it's a singular player sport or a double sport. And so I know that they are conscious of the numbers of athletes and coaches and supports that go to the Paralympics, and it's obviously very costly for a host city to be able to do that. So tennis is a great sport, and I think that's why rock climbing certainly got in, is because it's a singular sport as well. So I think team sports have a harder time with that than an individual sport like tennis does. So I'm hoping that Brisbane 2032 might be the opportunity to actually incorporate blind low vision tennis as a medal sport. I know that Tennis Australia is doing a lot of really strong work. They actually have a blind low vision tennis tournament happening in the Australian Open in February this year. And so I've been a part of former activations of blind low vision tennis at the Open, but this year will be a full tournament, which is very exciting. And I'm hoping that USTA will enable us to also have a tournament by 2028 at the US Open. So we're really working hard to get that on the radar and get that happening. So lots of amazing opportunities coming up with the Paralympics, and it's a great opportunity just to be able to, I think, publicize the challenges and the struggles of adaptive sports, not just for blindness and low vision, but for all athletes with a disability, and some of the challenges in working with mainstream sporting organisations to build awareness, to get coaching, to have volunteers, to have adaptive equipment, adaptive venues to play in. It's a huge problem logistically to do that. So I can say again that USTA and tennis have been fantastic around that and finding solutions for that. So I'm hoping it'll be the same with the NFL. That's my expectation when we launch. But yeah, it's great to see those mainstream sporting organizations now looking at adaptive ways to do their sport.
Right. Oh, yeah. That's something I've talked about many a times on this podcast, the collaboration with the organizations that have, let's be honest, the money, the influence, the notoriety. So that's amazing.
Yeah. And again, linking it back to, the one court devices that I believe will be available in homes soon. And, that's again going to be a big audience push. And so just another way that, the NFL can expand their market where and have a presence. Same with tennis. And I think the opportunity to work with people of all ages with blindness and low vision, and now in the aging population as well, with things like WebMD, there's a big population there, and I think tennis can make that hit. They want to have 35 million people in America playing tennis by 2035, and so that push to be able to incorporate all age groups is really important. And I actually was really loved that I had a 89-year-old female come and play the exhibition that we did in Dallas for ACB National Convention this year. And then she was actually from Seattle. And when we ran the tournament in Vancouver, Washington State, she actually came and played in the B1 division. And so it was fantastic to be able to, and she used to play beat baseball when she was younger, and just looking for something to do, and stay active with. So at any age, Greg, gives me a little bit of hope at 53 that, we can still play on for a little bit.
Oh yeah. And hey, I might have to interview her on this podcast too. I'm sure she's got quite a story.
Absolutely.
Cool. All right. Well, again, we've been chatting with Murray Elbourn here on Eyes Free Sports. And Murray, thanks so much for your willingness to come back on, and just kudos to you on everything you're doing out there in the blind community.
Thanks so much, Greg. Really great to be on your podcast again. And I encourage people to take that step and contact us. It's not as hard as you think. You don't have to be, a great athlete. You don't have to be, have played tennis or any kind of sport before to be able to get involved and get started. It's a community. There's different levels. So don't be intimidated by the fact that we've been talking about things like Paralympics and US Opens.
Sure.
There's plenty of opportunity just to play on a fun community level as well and just meet new people.
Great point. Oh, yeah, that's what I try to cover. If you're just a super recreational athlete, or if you want to become a super endurance athlete, there's something for everyone.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Greg. I appreciate it.
Yep. Thanks, Murray. Alrighty. Appreciate it.
To hear more episodes of the Eyes Free Sports podcast and to subscribe, search for Eyes Free Sports on your favorite podcast platform or visit eyesfreesports.com. Be sure to follow the Eyes Free Sports podcast at facebook.com/eyesfreesports and on Twitter @eyesfreesports.